Yo, what's up guys, I'm Steve. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made my new track Carry You Again, which is a melodic dance floor drum and bass track.
I could carry you again. 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 I could carry you again.
It is a mixture of how I made this track from scratch and also the final result. So without wasting any time, let's start with the video. Alright, let's grab a vocal first. So this one is Carry You Again from the MHA vocal pack. Now let's make a good progression for this. Let's set the BPM to 122. Let's make a chord progression. I'm gonna use Vital for it. Let's use the same synth I used in the MHA 60K drop competition, Chord Backrooms. Now let's make a bass progression first. Let's reduce the noise a little bit.
We started off at the bottom, and now we're here. We started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. We started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. The things I always promise, the things I always promise, like we could still be the things I always promise, like we could still be friends.
This sounds solid, we can work with this. Now, it's time for chords. It's quite hit and trial though, so let's start working on it.
Started off at the bottom. Started off at the bottom, and now we're here. Started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. Started again. The things I again. Started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. The things I always started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. The things I always promise.
So this chord progression sounds nice. Now let's check it on piano, because as Mike Williams says, ladies and gentlemen, if something sounds good on piano, it will sound good on anything. Nice, sounds good. Nice chord progression. Now let's copy this onto the chord backrooms. Now that we have a good progression, it's time to add some ambience to create an ethereal vibe. Let's add some drones, one shot, tremolo ambiences from my upcoming Atmos pack. Let's choose this one.
We started off at the bottom, and now we're here again.
Now let's add some ambient shot. This one sounds cool. Let's add some tremolo for movement. This one sounds nice.
We started off at the
Now let's add some reverb delay on the vocals.
started off at the bottom.
Sounds nice. What I'm doing here is called sidechain reverb delay. So to do that, just route your vocal to two buses, one for reverb and one for delay. Add reverb and delay with 100% of mix and do some little EQ for mixing, and which gives the vocal space for a better mix. Let's create some ups. I have a melody in my head. Let me replicate it. Damn, this one sounds very cool. And we can loop this again and again like an atmosphere in the background. So definitely sick melody, to be honest. Now let's find a cool plug. This one sounds cool. Let's add some EQ and a stereo shaper to make it wide.
We started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. The things
Sounds nice. Let me add this Mumbai ambience too. Let's add some top loops in the next part, which is the break or verse. I don't know.
We'll be friends, 'cause we were all too perfect.
We can add these two. Let's add a reverse. Let's create the overall structure for the track so I can genuinely finish it and not get stuck with a 16 bar loop. This portion will be the uplifting section. Maybe I will introduce some drop leads here. Here we'll start the build up.
Again, I could carry you again.
And then the build up and drop. So let's start working on the drop. But before that, let's automate the reverb and delay on the vocal. Fill the empty spaces like here. I can automate the delay. Alright, let's start with the drums. So I'm using this kick. So I added these snares. Let's add some EQ to cut the unnecessary lows. Alright, let's start with the bass line. So let's add this same chord progression. The bass line. So let me find something from my upcoming Serum sound bank. This one is good. And also best for dance floor DNB. Now let's create a sidechain for the bass. I feel like I should change the bass progression for the little variation. Also we are using the same progression over and over again, like in the intro, verse, break. So it's better to change it a little bit. And let's add some macros. Yeah, let's add some more bass layers. Let's add this one. Let's add a Reese bass for texture. Okay, now the sub for the low end. We'll use this one. Now we can start working on lead melody. Let's grab something similar like Ignite. So let's use this one. Something like this maybe. Something like this. Hey, this melody sounds familiar. I don't know which track is this from. No more wasting time. Let's start making an actual lead. I can work with this lead, but I think it still needs work in the last bar. Let's add some layers. I'm gonna use the same presets and effects chain from my Retrovision puzzle remake. So if you wanna check it out, go to nswmusic.com. Let's add some reverb automation. Let's add some chords now. This has some nice texture and movement. Let's use this one. Let's make a good progression now. Alright, I'm gonna switch to piano again. Let's also fix the last bar of the lead. Like this. Now it sounds awesome, to be honest. I also added this lead. Now let's add some top loops, crashes for the groove in D&B vibes. Now we have a very solid foundation for the drop. We can start working on break, or as I call it, the uplifting section. I will add the main lead with some different synths. Also, I'm thinking of some like stab bass. This sounds nice. Okay, now let's add some chords. This one nice. Now let's add some like fast fine-tune chord for the stutter vibe, I think. Plot twist. I just remade my own song, but still showing you every process so that you can implement it in your production. Alright, so now let me show you the final project. So the intro is the same, but in the verse, I added this plucky melody. This guitar loop. And this plucky chord. So in this part, the uplifting section, the synths are the same. I just added top loops, transition elements for smoother transition, and drop claps. Also, one important automation is the tempo automation. Like the track starts from 174 BPM, then the drop is at 184 BPM, and then it increases to 193 BPM. And also, I almost forgot about this one. Like I created these loops using shaper box. So I rendered out this portion, then added shaper box, and I just went through random presets to get some cool weird sounds. These are my favorite presets, so you can check them out. I learned this trick from MHA. For the build up, I added build up drums and risers with the main melody drowned in reverb with a low pass filter. Build-up automation like high pass and volume automation. And also one thing that I added sustained chords and lead melody to build tension. Now, for the drop, I have shown you the lead effects already, but let me show you again. I added EQ to cut the lows, then wave shaper, then ODT, EQ to cut the low end frequencies, then delay, Valhalla for automation, then again EQ for slight adjustments, Soothe to cut the unwanted frequencies, Fruity filter for automation, and this one is sidechain to vocals, then Fruity balance, and a clipper to cut the peaks. So for the bass processing, on the Reese bass, I just added this EQ to shape the sound, and it started to the mid bass bus where I added decapitator for distortion and saturation, OTT for compression, then again EQ to reduce the high end and cut the low end, and for the sub it's just EQ to cut the highs, and also I added these synths from the break with filter automation, so it sounds like this, like more of color based tab. And I also added this soft chord. And for the drop chords processing, 2 EQs to shape the sound, then saturation, and again EQ, and a stereo shaper to make it wide. I added these fog horns and strings, and then fog horn. Without the effect, it sounds like this. For the effects, EQ to shape the sound, Fruity filter for automation, then again EQ to cut the low end. And by the way, you can get this project if you wanna go deeper with it. You will get all the samples and presets I use in this track, so you can use them in your own track. Let's get back to the video. For the drums, I added bunch of top loops and effects. Also this ambience. And for the processing, on kick I added EQ to boost the lows, then a knock patcher preset from 6 sounds, then on snares just EQ to cut the low end, and on top loops EQ to cut the lows, and all of them are added to the main drum bus where I added compressor to glue it all together and a clipper to cut the peaks. And also I'm doing parallel processing, so I routed the drum bus to this channel where I added camel crusher, saturation, clipper, which is doing nothing. So yeah, that's all for the drum processing. And that's it for the track. There's nothing extra added in the next part, it's just copy and paste. And for for the mastering, I added a compressor and a Pro L2 to boost the volume of the track. So yeah, I hope you learned something, and maybe from next Friday or the Friday after that, I'll do proper track from scratch videos, because I've got 2 videos scheduled which I'm going to ask you guys to vote on in my community post, or you can tell me in the comments of this video too. Should I break down my SHM Another Minute remix next Friday or not? If you want to know how the remix sounds, I showed a little preview on my Instagram.
Can we stay?
So you can check it out. And by the way, you can download the FLP if you are interested. Also, it will be on exclusive sale for a few days, so check it out if you want. This helps me keep making these videos, so drop a like and subscribe. This helps the channel. So without wasting any time, let's check out the final result.
We started off at the bottom, and now we're here again. The things I always promised, like we could still be friends. Cause we were all too perfect, perfect in past tense. If you could carry all my burdens, I could carry you again. 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 It started off with heartbreak, and the same thing in the end. I wish things would be different, but there's no way to pretend. Cause we were all too perfect, perfect in past tense. If you could carry all my burdens, I could carry you again. I could carry you again.